The PA education system continues to incite to violence against Israel and the Jews. A recent study shows that nothing has changed. Also, some positive news as UNRWA's campus was destroyed in Jerusalem. Also, hear how the media's terms matter when describing the residents of Judea and Samaria. All this and much more on today's Judaization. Welcome back to Judaization here on JNS TV. My name is Josh Hasten, correspondent for JNS News. We are in the JNS Media Hub in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Let's get right to this week's news. The Palestinian Authority has not reformed its hate-filled educational system. Big surprise there. This according to Israel's Minister of Settlements and National Missions, Orit Struk, who sent a letter of warning on the matter to senior Israeli leadership this week. Thank you to JNS's David Isaac for reporting on this matter. In the letter addressed to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, and Acting Head of the National Security Council Gil Reich, Struk referred to an in-depth report by Impact SE, released 2 months ago, examining the PA's curriculum for the years 2025 and 2026. Impact SE is the Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. It's a nonprofit group that analyzes the content of school textbooks. The group's November 2025 review found that the PA's 2025-2026 curriculum systematically violates UNESCO principles and educational standards. According to Impact SC, the PA's curriculum for grades 1st through 12, published in September of 2025, incites antisemitism and violence, promotes jihad and martyrdom, glorifies terrorism, rejects peacemaking and the two-state solution, and erases Israel from maps. Now, let's leave the issue of the so-called two-state solution for now, because as you probably know, I've said it many times, such an entity would not bring peace in any way, shape, or form. It would be an existential threat to the state of Israel, but we're not talking about that right now. Let's talk about the findings of this report. In reality, any revisions in P8 books are mostly cosmetic, with shortened editions still containing incitement, including references to martyrdom in early grades and portrayals of Jews as liars and manipulators in high school materials, according to the organization. Anti-Semitism continues to be a core element of the curriculum, appearing across subjects and grade levels. Jews are depicted as deceitful and corrupt. They are also seen as enemies of Islam, with modern passages linking Jews and Zionists to greed, conspiracies, and control of global finance and media. This is classic anti-Semitism, folks. The curriculum consistently dehumanizes Israelis, portraying them as monsters, demons, serpents, or agents of Satan. Texts and poems depict Israelis committing atrocities and promote conspiracy theories presented as fact, reinforcing the idea that Israel's existence is incompatible with justice or humanity. Religiously motivated violence is actively promoted, with jihad taught and framed as a personal religious duty tied to the conflict with Israel. Martyrdom and death for religious or national causes are glorified as the highest moral achievements and paths to divine reward. Violence and terrorism are openly glorified, with attacks against Israeli civilians described as heroic and perpetrators exalted as martyrs and role models. Educational materials include graphic depictions of death and dismemberment, embedding violence into literary and grammar exercises. Maps and language in Palestinian textbooks erase Israel's existence, depicting all the territory from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea as Palestine. Israel is rarely named, instead referred to as the Zionist occupation or the Zionist entity, reinforcing non-recognition as a foundational element of national education, according to the report. And everything I've just said so far, folks, this is only a glimpse of the report. There is much, much more. The bottom line is that the PA is raising the next generation of Arab kids to hate Israel and to hate Jews. the PA is teaching these kids that terrorism is a way of life and praiseworthy. People often ask me, when will there be peace in Israel and in the Middle East? I always tell them, you don't have to go to the Knesset or to the Mukata in Ramallah to hear what the leaders are saying. All you have to do is pay attention to what is being taught in the PA schools and what propaganda is being spewed by the media. Until the next generation of kids under the PA, forget about Hamas, aren't taught this garbage, things will stay the same. Maybe countries who send hundreds of millions of dollars each year to the Palestinian Authority should stop doing so, as the money is sadly going towards developing the next generation of terrorists and warmongers. Moving on here, folks, Israeli authorities on Tuesday began demolishing the UNRWA headquarters in Jerusalem after a new law banning the organization's operations in the country took effect. Let's check out this video. So there you can see for yourselves Israeli authorities finally demolishing UNRWA's compound in Jerusalem. Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir hailed the move as a historic day, a holiday, a very important day for governance, saying the government was finally expelling terror supporters and vowing that this is what will be done to every terror supporter. A spokesperson for the foreign ministry said UNRWA/Hamas has long ceased to be a humanitarian aid organization, serving instead as a greenhouse for terrorism. In other words, an organization which allows terrorism to grow and flourish. Israel's foreign ministry highlighted an example of the UNRWA-Hamas connection, sharing a video from October 7, 2023, showing an UNRWA so-called social worker abducting the body of slain Israeli civilian Jonathan Samarino. The ministry said, "This is not humanitarian work. This is terror infiltration exposed in action." In October 2024, a year later, the Knesset passed legislation that bars UNRWA from operating offices or providing services within Israel's sovereign territory. The move came after the exposure of UNRWA employees' complicity in Hamas's October 7, 2023 massacre. The legislation formally came into effect on January 30th, 2025, prompting the immediate closure of the agency's main offices in northeastern Jerusalem. So folks, the bottom line is this. Hashtag UNRWA is Hamas, and I've said this many, many times. They are the humanitarian wing, so-called, of the Hamas terrorist organization. They have been perpetuating conflict for 78 years in this region, never once resettling a single refugee or any of their descendants per their mandate. Instead, they hold Arabs in squalor as pawns on the front lines against Israel, with fake promises of a so-called right of return, as in the destruction of the state of Israel. In addition, just like the PA's educational system is complicit in hate education, UNRWA's education is just as bad, if not worse. Israel finally decided to do something about it and close and destroy their compound of hate in Jerusalem once and for all, and hopefully forever. Moving on here, for this next piece of news, I need some help here. I have a question. When does a settler become a settler? The residents of Judea and Samaria, the 500,000 plus peaceful, loyal, army-serving citizens of the state of Israel, are often demonized by the international community as settlers. Now, in theory, that term should be positive. Those who are building and developing in the land of Israel should be viewed as pioneers on the front lines. However, settler has become a curse word. If I say the word settler, close your eyes for a second. I say settler. What do you automatically think of? Most likely a young male with a big kippah on his head, tzitzit, religious fringes blowing in the wind. That's probably what comes to mind. Tell me if I'm wrong. Never mind that around 40% or so of those who live in Judea and Samaria consider themselves as secular. You also have a large Haredi or ultra-Orthodox Jewish community living in Judea and Samaria. But be honest, when I say settler, what is the image that comes to mind? And that brings me to the article I saw in Times of Israel this week, which said that the number of attacks by extremist Jewish settlers against Palestinians and Israeli security forces in what they call the West Bank rose by 27% in 2025 compared to the previous year. This according to data recorded by the IDF and the Shin Bet security agency. Let's assume the IDF and Shin Bet numbers are accurate. We've talked about alleged settler violence in detail many times, but then the article says the attacks are being carried out by 300 extremists. In other words, 500,000 people are routinely besmirched because of 300 people. And that is what the media does. The article continues, the 300 extremists largely live in 42 illegal outposts across the West Bank, according to Israeli defense officials, and as many as half of them are technically registered as living in various towns and cities in Israel proper. Let me make sure you understand this. You're saying that 150 of these people, of these 300, actually have residency in pre-1967 Israel, in places like Tel Aviv, Kfar Saba, or Ra'anana. But according to the headline of the article, it's the settlers who are carrying out the violence. Now let's be clear, our enemies, Hamas, they call all Israeli settlers, regardless of where you live, because they don't want a single Jew to live in any part of the state of Israel. But for the media to say the violence is the work of settlers, but then say, oh, by the way, 150 or half of those violent people aren't even settlers, what does that show? It shows that sadly the demonization of residents of Judea and Samaria is real, and it's being carried out not only by our enemies, but by our friends, our own brothers and sisters. The report is therefore inaccurate, and the headlines are certainly inaccurate. Unfortunately, that stigma or that image you might have had in your mind about the loyal and peaceful residents of Judea and Samaria, that is the end result. Let's hope one day soon this all changes. And finally, I wrote an article this week in JNS which discusses how state representatives in the U.S. are pushing forward legislation which would make it illegal to use the term West Bank on government documents. Instead, officials would have to use Judea and Samaria, which is the historical and biblical names for this ancient region. And as I've explained before, Jordan renamed Judea and Samaria its West Bank in 1950 after illegally occupying the area at the end of Israel's War of Independence. Why is this issue so important? Because names matter. Terms matter. As I just said a few minutes ago, the term settler paints a negative picture. The terms West Bank, Palestinian, illegal occupation, and others are all misleading propaganda terms which paint the state of Israel in a negative light. Jews were the Palestinians before 1948 in British-mandated Palestine, not the state of Palestine, because no such entity has existed in history. But one day the Jews are Palestinian, and the next day the term is hijacked to create an ancient people here in the land of Israel. I'm sure you've all heard about Jesus, the Palestinian. That's obviously false. In this war, the war of narratives and ideas, it's crucial to get it right. Words are powerful. Hamas has become emboldened by the mainstream media when their lies and phony statistics are spread as fact. In other words can incite and words can kill. We unfortunately know that all too well here in Israel. That is why it's important that we use the correct terminology. This is the other battlefield, folks, the war of ideas. It's Judea, it's Samaria, it's not the West Bank. I applaud those state officials in the U.S. who get it, and I hope these resolutions pass into law. I hope similar proposals are passed on the federal level as well. And that's going to do it for today's Judaization. My name is Josh Hasten, correspondent for JNS News. I'd like to give a shout out to the people behind the glass here. Aaron Wuglanter on the board, Yuri Svertsky, station manager, Esther Eden, our producer, Ryan Lifshitz, and Zach Sickerman. Thanks for joining us here on JNS TV from the JNS Media Hub in Jerusalem. the eternal capital of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Wishing you all a great week. Make sure you get involved today. Give a super thanks on YouTube. Make sure you donate to JNS for the latest breaking news from Israel, the Middle East, and the entire Jewish world, only found on jns.org. Have a great week, everybody.